Okay, today's video is about using nodes that help you analyze and understand your InspectionWare workspace. Okay, so I've got my workspace set up here. I've got a digitizer with some processors on it, a scan ready to go, a periodic event doing pretty much nothing but running. So go to Programming in the Toolbox, and let's start with the Get Execution Log. Okay, so we'll just run the Start task, wait a few seconds, stop, and we've got a bunch of information, so I'm going to drag this out into a table view. And you can see what we've got. We've got, in here, we've got 921 points, and that means there's 921 executions that have been detected. And if I look in my table, there is a list of all of them, and the amount of time they take, how deep they were in the tree, and the time. That's a timestamp. This is an elapsed time. Okay, so the first thing to know about this view is you should look through the pages, because you can see different ways of looking at the objects that have executed. So there are their names, so you can see X is the motion axis, the digitizer, the processors, the periodic event. That page gives you types, and then you get the full path, and then the object that they're living in. Okay, so this is a little bit of an unwieldy view, so we can drop the Summarize FP object data onto it, and we get a summary of what's happened. So we have the object in the first column. This is an execute message, and the number of times it's executed. That would be the first time of it and the first execute. You probably want to go in here. We could put the elapsed column into the sum, and that would give us the total time that was spent on those nodes. Could move that up to average or maximum. I think you can get the idea that we could, take the longest single time. So that gives us a good analysis of what we're doing. Keep going with the nodes you can drop on here. We can sort. So this one would sort by the elapsed time. And so we'll drag that one out, and this is the one that took the longest time to elapse. I could, shorten this up and maybe just do the top 5. So that's the top 5 longest executions that happened. We can filter, so I'll move this up, and then say this is, let's just look at the FFT. So if the type is FFT, and this one drags out, and you can look here that we have got 81 executions of that. Could throw the summary on it. You could put the sort on it. So it's basically working in the same way you work with normal, say, data processing trees, but you're processing object times. Okay, so let's continue on. Maybe I'll just put it down to a summarize and get rid of the other ones. So let's say we want to look at this scan running. I can drag this scan onto this node. And what that does, it just puts a path in this property here. You can type a path there. And then we've got these 4 tasks are probably the ones you're interested run time to execute will run the scan and time all the executions that occur during the scans. If you just want to run the subtree, the execute processors. If you want to run a task and see how long it takes, that's that task there. And then if you want to see what happens when you set a property, you can use that one. So let's just let the scan run and drag that out. And we can see, just looking at any of these, we've run 5750 executes, and we can put a summary on here. Maybe why don't we take the total time, so you can see where the time is spent on each of the nodes in the tree. Another note that's interesting on this one is just to look at the parents. So what that'll tell you is, I'm going to change this over to names. It'll change you how many executes you have in each manager. Sort of gives you a sense of the time that's happening there. Back to that summary. Again, that's our elapsed time. Okay, so that's the execution logger. Couple of other sort of nodes that look at nodes and objects. Get all FP objects. So I drag that on there, and that tells me the contents of the tree. It gives you the property count, so you can sort of just get a sense of how big a tree you're looking at. In this case, it's not particularly useful or interesting, but for big trees it can really be helpful. And the other one that's can be useful is get branch connections. So I'm going to put this to both directions and drag that out, and that to run that, and that gives us a sense of the nodes that are connected to this. So so you can see the digitizer. This is actually would be the you can go through and look at the types and the path to see that that's connected to the device. The FFT is connected to the scan, and the data plot is connected to the filtered. Again, not particularly interesting in this case, but you have a big tree and a big branch. It can be kind of surprising, everything that's going on, and this helps you sort it out. Okay, I think that's a good introduction to these nodes that look at your workspace.